This is the second video for E4 baby steps. In this video I'm going to teach you how to tell which class is which in E4 and also how to rename your classes. Now for some of you this video is completely unnecessary because you only have one class in E4 and all your kids are in it. But for most people that is not the case. Let's check it out. Log in. Now for this particular video, I'm pretending like I am Mrs. Petrie because I needed a teacher who had at least 2 preparations and also had inclusion kiddos. When you log in, you want to click on My E4, and up here in the upper right you will see your classes. Now she has a science and 2 social studies. Now I happen to know that Mrs. Petrie teaches science 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 7th period, and she also has social studies 5th and 6th. But this is not 5th period and 6th period, these 2 groups. One group contains all of her regular kids. One group contains all of her inclusion kids. The reason I know that is because this year in E4, what they decided to do was to pull the E4 classes by course number in teams. The advantage of that is, for instance, her science classes, all of those kids are in one group. She doesn't have to maintain multiple E4 classes, put in announcements to a bunch of classes, put in content in a bunch of classes, remember which class she put that in, which class she didn't put that in. They're all together. It's also kind of nice if you're going to do some interactive stuff because you have the option of letting all the kids that you teach that subject to interact. With the inclusion kids, it's a little more complicated because they are broken out separately. So if she wants to put an announcement for social studies, she's going to need to put that in both of these classes because otherwise the parents, once we get to CCISD for me in November, if she only updates one class, the parents of that other class won't ever see that information. So even though it's broken into regular and inclusion, she needs to treat them the same when she updates stuff. So science is pretty simple because I know that that's all my science students, and I could rename this class, but I don't necessarily have to. So let's pay attention to social studies for a second. I'm going to go ahead and click on one of her social studies classes. And this is what a class looks like when nothing's been done to it, okay? Because most people on campus have not started working on their E4 classes yet, which is absolutely fine, but this is what a class looks like when it's bare and it's naked and it hasn't had anything done to it, all right? We're going to skip all this other stuff. That's for later training, but right now what we want to know is who is in this class because we need to be able to tell these 2 social studies groups apart. So I'm going to scroll down just a little bit under the control panel to an area called Evaluation, and I need to click the little arrow to expand that. One of the things under Evaluation is the Performance Dashboard. This is the quickest way to see who's in this class. So if I hit the Performance Dashboard, it'll open that up, and it'll give me a real quick view of every kiddo in this class. And she can look at this and say, oh, yeah, this is my regular kids. I know these kids. Or, oh, these are my inclusion kids. These are my inclusion kids. These are my AP kids. These are my GT kids, whichever it is. So then, once you know who it is, you can go back over to the control panel under Customization, Properties, and you can change the name of that class. So if I've determined that these are my regular kids, I can change this to Petrie Social Studies. You can say regular. I usually recommend that people say A and B or 1 and 2 or some other code for yourself so you know which is which, because if you put regular and AP, you know, sometimes people get bugged about that. Don't change anything else. Go all the way down and hit Submit. Now, if I go back to my E4, you will see that the name of the class has changed. Now it says Petrie Social Studies A. Then I can go look at the second group. I can go to Evaluation, to the Performance Dashboard, to verify those kids. This is a small group, so this is my inclusion kiddos. And then I can go back here to customization, under properties, and I can change this and call it or whatever you want to call it. Ignore everything else, go down and say submit. Now you will notice there's a bar across the top that tells me success. The green indicates it's been successful. If you see red across the top, that's an indication that something went wrong. Just a good tip to know. If I go back to my E4, now both of those classes have been renamed. Now if she wants to, she can go ahead and rename her science class, even though she knows that that's all her science kiddos. I'm not sure why her teacher's aide is not showing up, unless she doesn't have a teacher's aide. But if you did have a teacher's aide, that would be another course. Now, I don't necessarily think it's necessary to keep those teacher's aide classes all updated in E4. I don't think it's something you really need to worry about, but that's completely up to you. Now we know which group is which, and that will make it much easier later when we are putting information in.